Welcome to the Lovecars on the Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiff, Needell and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to Lovecars on the Grid, your global motorsport podcast, where we look back on just such a brilliant British Grand Prix, a dramatic German Moto GP, there's a very tense mid-Ohio Indycar, and a wet but not windy Chicago NASCAR. It was Ford's day down under in Supercars, and Storm Stacey stormed to success in stormy Snetterton Superbikes. Who writes these headlines, Tiff, Needell? British Grand Prix, Silverstone, the best of the year, and that's not being biased, ladies, gentlemen, whoever's listening. That was just it had everything.
Fabulous weekend. Well, the whole weekend, you know, I was up there entertaining the troops for Motor Passion, so I've watched every session, hanging over the balcony of the those sort of suites next to the BRDC, you know, champagne behind me and nice guests.
Let's talk about that. Great, let's talk about that, because unusually, we're so lucky in what we do. We get invited to all sorts of things all over the world. And I accepted some tickets from Skoda, and they were general admission because I only went on the Friday and Saturday. So what was it like from your perspective? I'll just give you a quick whistle stop what it was like from a general admission perspective as well. So what was it like drinking the champagne and nibbling on your lobster canapes?
It was one of my British racing drivers' car park, of course, in the centres. I could drive in.
Brilliant.
And then, of course, the British racing drivers have golf carts that take them from the farm car park to the main clubhouse. So I was on my buggy. Very thankful to the RDC for managing that. And then we had some wonderful guests. I mean, it's great. I know, you know, obviously it's an earner. I'm out there working the room with the Motor Passion guests, and so a lot of them don't know anything about motorsport, and some are big fans, and it's just great to see people enjoying, you know, watching motor racing, you know, and there's Formula 2, Formula 3, the Porsches and the Red Arrows, and it's just a really great day out.
Yeah, really, it was just incredible. And what was
were you in the mud then? A few were complaining about.
It wasn't very muddy, but there were lots of not complaints, but just general observations. Just tell me, who were the big names in there in the BRDC that you were with this weekend?
Well, I was hardly in the BRDC because I was in the hospitality units next door to it. So I didn't really see all the stars. But my son, Harry, who was my guest in the BRDC, had the absolute delight not of bumping into any of the racing drivers, but there was a Raiders centre-back. It was a huge black dude. And so Harry went up and said, you know, just want to say how well you played for the Raiders. And this star was shocked that someone had recognised him. Well, the fact that, you know, a 7-foot-tall black dude in the middle of the British Racing Drivers Club probably does stand out. But I think Harry was the only one who knew who he was. So he didn't get a selfie, of course. Harry's useless.
He's very shy. He's not shy, that's the wrong word. He's super confident, but he's very respectful is the word.
Respectful, yeah.
So from a main punter's point of view, I thought it was brilliant. So if you go on the Friday and Saturday, I didn't go on Sunday. I had the roving grandstands, which is so you can watch it from many different places. So it went all the way from Luffield to Brooklands, Luffield, went all the way down to Copse to Beckett's. So it was fantastic. So many different elements of the car.
Was that free seating then? Did you have a seat number?
Well, actually, it was roving grandstands, so you can go anywhere you like, but you're supposed to stay in the same grandstand. But because Friday's quite quiet, and indeed Saturday, if you just sort of a bit of confidence, you walk through, they let you through. But I took my son Oliver, and he wanted a baseball cap, and we went to have a look at the baseball caps. How much for a baseball cap with Mercedes or Red Bull or McLaren? How much?
£49.
60 bloody pounds. That's about $85. Anyone listening from the USA? So, needless to say, you can get a baseball cap. Look, you expect to pay a few quid over because of the where you are, but coffees, teas, drinks were ridiculously expensive, but that's okay. But Silverstone, and they did a brilliant job. But the Wi-Fi and phone reception, you can't even send a message or anything. It's all. I'm surprised at that. But anyway,
it was
right
nothing inside the club. It was right in the club. I expect we got a boost from the club. The club had good signals. Don't you worry. We own the place, don't you? We own the place. There was some complaints on the Sunday and on the Saturday about to get to the infield from the hospitality car park was out by Copp's Corner on the outside. You had to go through the tunnel. The tunnel apparently got half flooded, and on the entrance of the tunnel, you have to show your tickets on your stupid phone instead of a nice thing printed off, which you can just get out of your pocket and give to someone. You've got to get your app and get your thing and then find the right page. And then, So
think yourself lucky we couldn't even go on the infield. I blagged the infield on the Friday, but we weren't even supposed to go. But I thought it was fantastic, and the amount of people there and the amount of proper fans, they're all decked out. It's like when you go to a football game and everyone's got their kits on. They all had their McLaren or Mercedes or the Red Bull kits great. On.
Stormzy went well. Stormzy, actually, we could have added that to the Snetterton headline because Stormzy went down a storm on stormy Saturday night, or was it Friday night? Whichever night he was. Apparently, it was a great show because he was Friday out night. Stormzy was out giving it all his storm. I'm not particularly obviously a Stormzy addict, but he's very, very popular with those that like that sort of music.
Oliver's most disappointed that I wouldn't wait for Stormzy 10 o'clock in the rain. So, and there was a big thunderstorm as well. But let's go on to the action because it was just incredible. And it wasn't just Formula One. There was Formula 2, Formula 3, Supercars as well.
They're all built up the qualifying. So I go through the qualifying to see what happened at the back of the field as we build towards the front. And Q1, it was the two Alpines this year that went out. Alpine have suddenly been sort of top 10. You know, they're going well now. Then boom, it's amazing how a team can just click and go backwards. So two Alpines went out, joined by Bottas, who should probably go out for the rest of his career, but no, I won't hold it against him. K-Mag, and of course the other one that didn't make Q2 was... We'll come to him later. I mean,
my expectations of him were low, but that just shocked me.
How would he have felt in the gravel? I mean, it was obviously very tricky qualifying because the drizzle was coming, but that was safe for everybody, and the most talented drivers should be able to sort that out. But parked in the gravel. We'll talk about his future later on, the gossips going around. But so Perez out in Q1. And Mercedes, first and second. Whoa, that was, because I think in free practice they weren't quite up that high. And then, of course, we had Q2. We lost Leclerc, the Ferrari cocking up their strategy and getting him out the wrong tires, wrong time. Both Red Bulls went out. Yuki upsetting Ricciardo again. Just when Ricciardo had a good time last out, so Yuki leading. And the good news about Q2 for me, I thought, was Logan Sargent qualifying 12th. He probably knows it's all over. He's going home next year, but he tries so hard, that kid. He did well in Formula 3, and he's very, very good. He's as good as Lance Stroll, He's that
his
sort of level.
His face says it all. If you look at his face, even on the picture that Sky put up, his face is just frustration.
And of course, in the race, he went. I would talk about the race later, but again, he got through the race. But then Q3, we had this amazing, the weather was out, the showers were in the air, and we had this fantastic battle for pole position. With Lewis going up on top for a minute and the crowd going wild, and then George outdid Lewis, and Max, of course, had gone off in Q2, hadn't he? And just scraped. He was only 11th, I think, in Q2, so he only just sort of got in to the top 50. No, Q1, that was when he went off. I don't know when he went off, but anyway, and he damaged his floor. And so they'd repaired the floor, I think, for the race, but he only managed fourth, but still good with a damaged floor. Then with Oscar Piastri, McLaren will go on in the race. They keep on they don't shoot themselves in the foot, but they shoot themselves in the little toe, shall we say. They always seem to make a little error. I don't know why. I didn't see what happened in the pit lane, but he got out too late to get round to start the final lap and had to start the final lap behind Carlos Sainz. So, Oscar, who could have been third on the grid easily because he was right on the pace with Lando. So that was a shame. So he only qualified, fifth in the end. Hulkenberg, who does this in qualifying coffee, great to see that Haas come so well. Sainz, 7th, Ferrari, not only not getting Leclerc through, but just don't seem to have a quick car anymore. It's such a shame. We've now got 3 quick cars when we should feel we've got 4 quick cars.
We've had four different cars have won this year. 4 different manufacturers have won this year. So it shows how they've gone from
Stroll out qualifying Alonso again. Weird, with Albon in between them in 9th in the Williams. So
he's so good, Alex. He's so good, Alex Albon. He really is so good. And there was supposed to be a big announcement this weekend that Carlos was going to Williams, and that was all the talk in the pit, and everybody said it was going to be announced this weekend, and it never happened. So maybe something's...
Wait till later. Okay, I've got the later. Well, no, I don't know that much. But then we just had this fabulous race. I mean, it was obviously helped by the drizzle. And it's funny, a lot of the guests in the box, we saw it was just going to be a bit of a. They're all out of DRS, and I was looking a bit worried because Silverstone's not the easiest track to follow, because you've always got a few corners from DRS 1 to DRS 2, so you always drop back a bit in the dirty air. So overtaking isn't that simple, even with DRS at Silverstone. The opening laps, it looked like it was going to be Mercedes 1, 2, and then McLaren 3, 4. But again, we'll come to Max later in the race, but you have to give him credit because when he's on pole and he's got the best car, he finishes the first lap 1.5 seconds up. He just breaks the DRS in the opening lap. And that extra skill on slightly colder tyres, not settled into the race. And again, he did Lando in turns 3 or 4, whatever it was, and then sort of pulled away from Lando and chased after Merckx for a while, just giving it his 100%.
Oh, he's incredible. He's an incredible driver.
But then the drizzle began to cave, the spots began. And then we saw, Lewis catching George and going past George.
Can I just say, for once, I actually didn't want rain because we had British 1, 2, 3 at the time, and they were probably they were probably gapping 4th place. So Max Verstappen.
But it could have been an hour. It could have been a 1.5 hour bore. So once again,
I would have taken that for 1, 2, 3 though.
I don't know whether George was already suffering from whatever put him out of the race, but when it started spitting, Lewis was the one that soon caught him up and went by. So we had this huge roar of approval as Lewis took the lead. And the other thing is, because they both overtook, then McLaren's came good. So I forgot which order it all happened, didn't I? Because it was all so exciting. Because then the McLarens, as the rain got worse, the McLarens started catching the Mercedes.
Probably had a softer setup or something.
Yeah, why is that? And it's like, you can only explain, like I was telling these people, it's like if the McLaren is 0.5% softer than the Mercedes in their perfect drive, that could be the difference. It can be such tiny margins on the setup of cars that meant the McLarens then forwards when it was slippy, and the Mercedes dropped backwards. But then we had this the rain got too much, and we had Leclerc and Perez sent out way too early on wets, which completely destroyed their
intermediates
races.
They went out on.
Yeah, intermediates. Yeah, I call them wets now because nobody ever uses the wets, do they? Then Mercedes had the good double stacking idea to get them both in and both out again, whereas McLaren only did Lando, and they did Lando a lap later, didn't they? Did he come out behind after that? I always forget how it was all kicking off. But they kept Piastri out for a lap longer, and that ruined his day. He came out later. The amount he lost doing one more lap on the slicks on a very wet track. Pretty much finished his race off.
I want to add at this point, I love Zach Brown and I love the energy he brings, but you got to start questioning McLaren because this is probably the 3rd race they should have won or had an incredibly good opportunity to win, but they messed it up on strategy. And you've got to start saying, hang on a minute, because it is these differences that the small differences that will make a big difference for the outcome. And the decision to not double stack Oscar Piastri, I'm not a strategist at all, but this just seems so odd. Poor lad, he's so good, he's so close. And he had the qualifying. He
didn't get out for his 3rd lap.
He got a lot of support from the British crowd. I don't know whether that was because of McLaren or because of Lando. Whether they thought maybe because it's hard to see when they're going around who's who with the. All you can spot really is the different helmets and a couple of tiny bits on the car.
No, oh for goodness' sake! My opening thing and all my guests, my corporate guests, is I point out to them, as you should know, one of each team has a fluorescent camera above their heads, yellow.
I know the other has a black. Goodness, I know that, but
so it's not different. So don't look at their helmet.
It's
not. That's the point. You can see that fluorescent yellow on Lando's car, and the fluorescent yellow on Lewis's car, and the fluorescent yellow on Carlos.
Yeah.
So no, that is the way to watch everybody. Learn who's got which fluorescent camera.
So Zach Brown, just be careful, sharpen that pencil a little bit, and just work on that strategy because you're losing races when you don't need to be losing races.
Don't think you need to tell them. No, I think they probably know. But then we lost George, which of course was a shame. But I don't know how long he'd had a problem for. And so now we'd lost Piastri due to strategy. We lost George. So it was now the three final battling. And Lando again, he came in a lap later, didn't he? And then he had a messy pit stop. And all of a
Lewis
sudden,
went in front
of the crowds. And Lando came out the pit lane on his which time red. He went red in the end, and Lewis had gone red.
Let's just talk about that as well, because the team and Lando are saying, "What do you want to do?" And they didn't give him any information.
No.
They didn't say. They said, "Oh, it was almost like too quickly." Well, Lewis on the soft and Max on the hard. Which one do you want to go for? We do on the medium, and it was like, well, tell me what to do.
Well, Oscar took the mediums and nearly caught Lando at the end of the race by a couple of seconds for fourth place, the third and fourth. But obviously the white tyre, Red Bull again strategy, and Max got the right decision. The white tyre, the hard tyre was the one to go for. And I think he made the race, to be fair, Max.
Max is brilliant. He's like, in a pantomime, you have the evil villain, you have that person always.
I was convinced he was going to catch. I was convinced he was going to ruin their day, that Lando's tyres would fall off a cliff. Not Lando, Lewis's tyres would fall off a cliff with 2 laps to go. Max would go by, ruin the day.
And wave at Lewis as he goes past.
You never, even when Max has got a broken floor and the bad handing car, he never gives up. So
no, he doesn't. He's amazing.
But it was just, I was telling people in the box before the race, who do you want to win? I said, it's got to be Lewis. Lewis today. It could be his last ever Grand Prix win if Ferrari are a bit of a lemon next year and their 2026 car is rubbish. And it's just because he's leaving Mercedes, and it's just brilliant. A brilliant stride, tears in my eyes as he crossed the line. And
I think everybody did. Yeah,
absolutely brilliant. So,
people are saying, is it redemption for 2021? It's not.
Oh God,
2021. Let's just get over it. But it must be nice after all that time, 900 odd days or whatever it is.
Now, don't you start on that either.
I'm not doing the number. I'm not. I've got so many stats. But I'm not.
That's a crofty thing. There's another one. We'd move on to Indycar in a minute. Again, the headline was first win for 943 days, and that just does my head. So now, hold on a minute. Instead of looking forward to what's being said next, I've got how long? That says 365 in a year. So I've got to divide 937 by 365. So just say nearly 2 years, or a year and a half, 2.5 years, or just over 2 years. Don't come up with these stupid stats because you've got a computer that works it out for you.
But it was after a very long time, very emotional. I loved seeing his dad there. Of course, his dad's been there, and his mum. But it's your father always seems to be there because it's racing, isn't it? It's a sort of a boy thing. His mum's always by his side as well. Very emotional, very, very good. What was it like up in the?
Oh yeah, everyone wanted Lewis to win. Really, I think we had a competition to vote who wins, and lots of people went for every driver. But I think secretly we all wanted Lewis to win.
I got to say, because I've become a big Max fan over the last few weeks. A very superficial Max fan, but because he is a phenomenal driver, as we've always said. But I just thought that Red Bull, Christian Horner, Max, I thought one of them, especially Christian Horner, could have said, "Well done, Lewis. Congratulations, Lewis." On their social media posts. No, because on their social media posts, I think they post, when Lando wins, or, well, I'm pleased for Lando, and I know they're good mates and all that sort of stuff. But it's just, surely after all that time, you want to say to the most successful Formula One driver of all time, congratulations, well done with your win at your Grand Prix.
They might have done.
But
I'm just thinking, talking about the love affairs, have you seen Conor Moore, this amazing impressionist? He's done a new one like a couple of days ago. So you've got to go on Conor Moore's Twitter. So he's done a Love Island Formula One. And the more successful he gets, I think he's getting a bigger budget and more imaginative. So he's got everyone in Love Island. Lewis talking to Max. There was Lewis. I think it opens with Max talking to Lando. And Lando saying, I want to be friends with you. And it's all the themes of the way. And then at the end, a new contestant comes into Formula One Love Island. And it's Adrian Newey. And so everyone's going, I'm going to check. It's so good. Conor Moore, Twitter, watch the Love Island. It is absolutely brilliant.
Okay.
Rest of the field, the Ferrari, Sainz came home. Oh, what was it? I've lost my bit of paper now. Where am I? 30 seconds down in the end, the best Ferrari. It was only 7 seconds ahead of Hülkenberg, Sainz. So Ferrari really have lost their way somehow, which is frustrating by spectators. Stroll beat Alonso, 7th and 8th to Aston Martin, just for picking up the pieces, really. Albon had a really good run, 9th for points. Yuki, 10th. And then poor old Logan Sargent, 11th. No points, Logan, but a really good race.
But you haven't mentioned 17th place.
No.
Perez. I mean, yeah, that's not a bad result, is it?
Well, I'd mentioned that he was. Well, they did put him on the wrong tyres in his recovery drive.
But yes, come on, he should never have been there in the first place. We all get some bad luck, but not week after week after week.
The next page is Perez headlines today, according to Christian Horner and others. They're talking about the rumour says it's an unsustainable position. So, last week he signed the contract. Now there's bits and pieces going on. There's actually, he's had since Miami, he's scored 15 points for Red Bull. Well, Max has picked up 119, 15 to 119. And of course, the manufacturers are so important to them. Now, the rumour has it from a source. Not usually have sources. I haven't got a source on this one either. It's what I've read off Tinternet. That apparently he's not allowed to. If Max goes more than 100 points behind Max at the midway of the season, summer break, we're in 2 more Grand Prix we've got, Hungary, Belgium. That is a reason to drop him. The same at the end of the season.
Yeah.
However, he's already 137 points behind. So it means he's got to get 37 points more than Max in the next 2 races. So if Perez won the next 2 races, he gets 50. That means if Max gets more than 13, this is just a rumour, then Perez won't have reached that contract of unsustainability, which would give them a reason to no longer employ him. So,
Tiff, can I say that the Red Bull is unbelievably hard to drive. Isaac Hadjar, who went into he was in the car and he was P19, P20, and he's
slowest
F2 Supremo. F2 Supremo. So it is hard to drive. And Max just shows how good he is because he gets the most out of it every single time. But Perez shouldn't be there, and it sounds like he's not going to be there when it comes back after summer.
So who takes?
So maybe that is the whole Carlos thing. Is that where we're
well,
going
yeah,
now?
this is what I was about to say. So now,
wow,
Carlos is obviously just about to sign for Williams, just about to sign for LP, just about to sign. Maybe. So of course we've now got this situation. So everything's now in limbo land. Yuki still doesn't seem to be in favour from the rumours with Red Bull. Nor does Ricciardo, really. I mean, they've had him before and he's been beaten by Yuki. We wouldn't promote Ricciardo now after his results against Yuki. But Liam Lawson has suddenly popped up into the gossip mongers. Of course, he did so well last year when he replaced Ricciardo, wasn't it, for a couple of Grand Prix. He's actually doing some testing, aero testing next week in an old car or something, which one. But they all say that's already scheduled before. So Liam Lawson is leaping into the possible page.
Surely that's why Carlos didn't sign this weekend. Surely that must be the reason.
But also Mercedes are cooling on the Antonelli thing because Antonelli hasn't gone that well in Formula 2 this year, and he's still very much a rookie. I mean, he did Formula Regional European, and dominated it last year, but that's still Formula 3.5. He didn't even go to Formula 3, but obviously he's a huge talent. But I think they're cooling their love for Antonelli going straight to Mercedes, which so people are saying that will probably push Antonelli into the Williams seat. That's a possible. They're talking about a lot. I'm feeding the feed. But then you've got a Mercedes seat for a year. And I think Carlos didn't like Mercedes because they only wanted to give him 1 year because they still think Antonelli. So Carlos might think, well, a year in a Mercedes that's now a good car. Do I go there?
My view is if you're confident enough in yourself, take the year. Because if you're confident in your ability, take a year because you're gonna blow it out of the water. Or maybe a bit of bad luck. Yeah. Oh, that's exciting.
Still Audi's still the favourite. I would have thought. I don't know, Audi.
Yeah.
So, that's exciting. Williams have got Sainz or Bottas or Ocon. Ocon, you see, very strong. I put him ahead of Bottas in my team if I was or Antonelli going into the Williams. Alpine have still got their second seat. They're queuing up the rookie. Jack Doohan was doing the FP1. He's obviously a possibility. Teo Pourchaire is seatless, walking around the world from Japan to America.
Of course,
how about their Formula 2? Victor Martins. He's an Alpine thing. And of course, Ollie Behrman has now officially signed for Haas. And I was absolutely delighted that my Friday job was hosting his
I saw that
box. And so I had to interview Ollie Behrman. and who I'd never met before. And flipping out, he's taller than you think. I know we all know he's 6 foot. When you actually stand beside him, he's this little skinny thing, about 2 inches taller than me. But a most charming young man. And he's just so bright-eyed and excited about life, and he's not over himself or in himself. And I joke, now you've signed the bill. Have you got your penthouse flat in Monte Carlo bought and your Ferrari? Oh no. It was quite funny because he was quite excited to meet me. I was quite proud to say, I watched all your stuff when I was younger. I was watching all your films all the time.
Oh wow!
A absolutely charming young man, and I'm delighted he's now a full-time Grand Prix driver and will inherit Lewis's seat at Ferrari. Seems to be the path is there as long as he doesn't do anything stupid.
Talking of tall lads, Harry Benjamin is going to be on our table at the Goodwood Ball. You're not going now, are you?
No, not there.
He's a tall lad as well. And you just mentioned Jack Doohan, but his father became an honorary member this weekend of the BRDC. So that's what I'm aiming for. So Mick Doohan, honorary member of the BRDC. I reckon. Yeah, but you get this done in 2 years.
You'll need a member to propose to you. Where
John
can
Morrison,
you find a member?
John Morrison. I don't need you. I got John Morrison.
You'll need a seconder.
Ray Mallock. Garrett Bell.
Oh, dear.
Garrett Bell. There do it for me. And Misty loves me as well. Thank you very much.
So anyway, wonderful Formula One, wonderful stories. And Ollie Behrman, of course, we're talking about now, this Prema. Even he laughed when I said, if this had been your first Formula 2 season, everyone would think you're a tosser, because the Prema cars have made him and Antonelli, the most hyped young men, look very below average and below normal, But they're slowly getting the hang of Prema, this team that must be scratching their heads out, slowly sorting out this new Formula 2 car, trying to unlock its little secrets. And Ollie qualified 5th at the weekend, by far the best so far. He was 9th in Austria, of course, which put him 2nd on the grid, and he won the sprint race. Whereas Kimi Antonelli was 10th, about half a second slower than Ollie. But of course, that gave him pole position for the sprint race, which he duly won. So they both won a sprint race now, but even they know a sprint race is a bit of a gimme.
And please, this is not being biased about Silverstone, but is Silverstone the best Formula One track on the circuit in the schedule?
No.
Okay.
I don't like it.
Why?
I don't like it because of the gaps between. So everyone raves, but I'll just take the Beckett's bypass.
When it's a close race, it's great.
If it's a close race, which with the aero is still a problem. With Beckett's bypass that every driver loves, everyone raves about how far they go in at 200 miles an hour, and it's left and it's right and there's a long, long left. And the problem is it slows. It's a complex which goes fast, medium, slow, and it's got a long, long right-hand corner. And you cannot follow that close. And if you hit that long right-hand just before you start the hanger straight, which is a traditional overtaking point for normal racing cars, you just get the understeer, and you just drop 2 or 3 car lengths. Nobody ever starts the hanger straight in someone's gearbox if they've got the same tyre situation. Later in the race...
Unless you're in a Caterham.
Well, God, not a catering.
I mean, I've got to get it into every podcast.
When Max was going slower on the greasy conditions, and both Lando and Piastri caught him up, didn't they? But then the DRS was too strong, because if you actually can come out of the Beckett's bypass because you've got better tyres or a better handling car, they just drove past. I mean, Max couldn't swerve under braking because they were overtaking him before they even got to the braking zone. So the DRS was a bit too strong. And
I think just to let people know, I mean, people probably know this anyway, but you can't, once you pass cops, you can't overtake in a Formula 1 car. You can't, whole section there, you can't overtake. And it's, Well, even the design, I think it's good.
Okay. Also, the design of which is the straight before Brooklands, the other where the DRS is. The Wellington straight. So again, the original, which I was a BRDC member, I saw the design ideas for the new track. And the original design was to go around the last corner past the pits, then go in a long, straight line to a hairpin bend to turn left and come down the Wellington straight. But no, someone probably said, we need more squiggles. It looks boring, looks too easy. So they put in a flat out right left, which everybody's flat out through, but you drop back because you've got aero. They then put in a tight right, a short straight, a ridiculously tight left-hander where you're all falling over each other and you can't follow that closely. And then this final flat left-hand kink that begins the straight, which you fall back away because you've got error.
Yeah.
So you then eventually, you only ever start the Wellington straight 3 or 4 car lengths back, and you catch up under DRS, but you can't overtake, unless, of course, the tyre grip is less.
Unless you're in a Caterham.
Was that a driver that crashed at that corner at the end of the Wellington? I saw someone have a big Caterham crash at Brooklyn.
Somebody went into me 4 years ago. That wasn't my fault, the steward said. Thank you.
So no, Silverstone, although I'm a BIDC member, I don't think it's a particularly good track for racing because of the DRS element of Formula One.
And I've got to say, the atmosphere was electric, was amazing, but maybe it's because it was a little bit wet. The atmosphere wasn't as good as you would get in Holland or indeed Austria last week, where the Dutch were going crazy. The Brits were going crazy, but not to the extent, I don't think so. But a lot of people there this weekend.
Magical.
It was very good. Overall, very good.
So I've just finished off the F2s then. So Ollie Behrman, they retired from the reverse grid race and finished 7th. He ran 2nd in the May feature race, jumped from 5th on the grid to 7th, but dropped 2nd but dropped to 7th. And Anselli won the sprint race and was then taken out in the main race. Zach O'Sullivan, another British driver, he qualified 14th.
Sorry, Tiff, I was just going to say then, I've got a video of Hadjar going off at Cops, but you can't see it because the weather was so bad. It was literally, it's just, all you can see is spray from cars. You can't see anything at all, but take my word for it, that's Hadjar going off at Cops.
But he won the race. Was that a sprint or May?
No, that was the first race, wasn't it? He didn't. Yeah, he won the first. He won the sprint, but that was
he won the main.
Race.
He won the main race. He
main race. Sorry, that was a sprint race. That was a sprint.
Yeah. So so Hadjar, he was. I mean, that it's a shame that Formula One test was so bad for him. But maybe you never know if Horner had said, "You touch that car, that's Perez's car. You risk it at all." He could have had a horrible sort of briefing before he went out. Just drive slowly around, not proving anything, because he was dynamite in the Formula 2 car. But he was, so there were 4 of them doing FP1, Behrman in the Haas, Stewart in the Alpine, Franco Colapinto, this well-financed young, I think American, but at least Colapinto, I think American, was out in the Williams, and he was quicker than Hadjar in the flipping Red Bull. You never know when they get these FP1s. F3 was better for the Brits because Arvin Lindblad won the reverse grid race, qualified 10th, and so he started 3rd and won the sprint race, and then he won the main race. So he swept, as the Americans would say. He was actually given the main race win because, who was it? Callum Voisin won on the road, but he had a penalty, which would have been a shame. But he would have been British winning as well. So, yeah, Lindblad, another highly rated, Swedish named, but very British Formula 3 driver, won both races. What else have I got down there? Luke Browning, of course, he's on pole position, but he had a really wrecked weekend that didn't work out at all. Porsche, Harry King, our great King Harry, who we were hoping would win the championship. He finished 4th. He was even beaten by his teammate this time. He said 3 second places behind this dominant Dutch guy, Larry ten Voorde, who won
every race.
Won every race. But it's almost sad again because we always go on about Formula 2 and Formula 3, how you get your £3 million budget and you've got to get in the right team. You know, Prama's rubbish, Prama's good, ART. You've got to buy. So the first 3 on the Porsche Super Cup grid were all from one team. They were all from the Schumacher team. And then the next 2, Harry King and his teammate, were both from the Lechner team. So even in Porsche Super Cup, it's critical that you get with the right team. And,
but that's the same as any racing, isn't it?
But he was in Porsche Super. I don't know how they can't work it out. How is the team beating you?
How do teams in single series racing championships get so much better than others?
I know, because you would have thought that engineers, they haven't got strict contracts. You would have thought someone would leave ART and go to Prama and take all the secrets with them. But you would have thought that espionage would be quite simple, because the drivers must know. Drivers seem to change teams. Because the driver in an ART car that's rubbish this year tries to get to a Prama car would take all the ART secrets. I don't know. So Harry King, struggling Harry. You're a superstar in that Super Porsche, but you're not winning. So that was a wonderful, wonderful weekend in Britain. And then we go to a wonderful weekend. There's always the German Grand Prix, this Sachsenring, this real bullpit of a up and down, super fast downhill, massive crowd, smoke bombs going off everywhere. The big story, of course, is the championship battle out front between the factory Ducati of Francesco Bagnaia and the satellite Pramac Ducati of Jorge Martin, which is actually, he's got a factory bike, so he's got a 2024 bike. And of course, this team's leaving. They're going to Aprilia next year. So of course, Martin's been dropped by the factory. Anyway, so that was the main through the weekend. Martin won the sprint, which he's prone to do more than anything else, when Bagnaia was third. And then we had this sight yet again of a leader dropping it whilst leading with about 10 laps. Martin was just a 2-horse race between Martin and Bagnaia. And Bagnaia must have been about 200 yards behind with 3 or 4 laps to go into the first corner hairpin, and Jorge Martin drops his Ducati onto the track. And it's just their marginal error.
I know, it's crazy, but it happens.
We say this
so
every
often.
time it happens. I know, we keep on talking about it. You just imagine they thought he might have braked, 5 meters later because he's feeling a bit of pressure. He's probably got the pit board saying, 0.5, 0.4. Yeah. But Bagnaia's catching you, and he just brakes 5 yards later, and they're turning in, and they're trying to release the front brake a bit, and then the front falls underneath you, and down you go, and your day's over. So Bagnaia took the win and took the championship lead now. So having been way behind earlier in the season, he's now gone past Jorge. But the Marc Marquez show goes on. However much everyone's looking at who's going to win the championship, there's always the subplot of what is the miraculous Marc Marquez going to do, the indestructible. Because in qualifying, I think it was practice, one of the two, he had another massive his tiny little body flown into the air, crumpling down on the fact they've got these airbags now is such a difference to the survival of these sort of crashes than 40 years ago. But even so, 100 and something miles an hour, landing from 20 feet up in the air, however high he goes. And he had bashed ribs. He qualified 13th. And in the sprint race, he managed to get up to 6th in the short race. And then in the main race, he got up to 2nd. I mean, there was, obviously Jorge Martin crashed and others fell behind the wayside. But he actually caught his brother up and teammate. They're both in the satellite Grassini Ducati team. So he caught and passed his brother I think it was on the last lap. You swine. I mean, the brother, you would have let it. So they were second. It's the first brothers on a podium in MotoGP. I think that has been done before. But again, in MotoGP, they're always so happy. Everyone's happy at the end. Bagnaia is jumping up and down with the 2 Marquez brothers, who finished 2nd and 3rd. So fantastic entertainment as always. Susie Perry always in the background. She was pretty good, tear in her eye as well. Moto2, Jake Dixon, our only British driver, and he's back. He's been creeping back, hasn't he? He's 4th, I think, was it last week in Assen? 2nd this week out behind Fermin Aldeguer. And our best Moto3 boy, Scott Ogden, had one of his best results. I think he qualified about 7th and finished 10th on the back of the pack, so did well. And his less successful, not quite so quick teammate, Josh Watley, qualified 21st, which is normally down there. Finished 21st, I mean. But I mean, just to show he's getting quicker, because he was on the back of the 3rd pack. They always end up in packs. So there was a pack of 8 at the front and a pack of 8 in the middle, a pack of 10 at the back. But he finished 21st, but he was 0.8 of a second behind place 16th. I mean,
wow.
They must have been 5 wide across the finishing line. So good run for Josh. So as always, MotoGP entertains. IndyCar over America now. The hybrid debut, which seemed quite a bit.
Why was it on so early? It was on really early yesterday, which suited me.
Well, it's at East Coast, but yeah, they start at 1 o'clock. It's only 6 p.m. It was about 6 p.m., wasn't it? In the hard time. Yeah, most of the IndyCar races in the East Coast, 5 hours behind. It's when they get 8 hours behind the West Coast that it tends to get later and later. I mean, spectacular. They got the new hybrid, and to a spectator or television viewer, makes absolutely no bloody difference at all, just to please the manufacturers.
The manufacturers don't care about it anyway.
Well, why have we got it then? I don't know. And apparently they can now self-start, which is actually a good thing. They can use the battery they've got a starter motor now, so they stall the cars instead of, because IndyCar, if they stall, they don't, take them off the track like in Formula One. They send out the remote starter and they start them up and get them back in the race. I mean, to highlight what they do, Dixon, he had an electrical fault. I don't know if it was anything to do with the modern hybrid. It probably is. But he stopped on the parade lap, couldn't get it going. So the marshals pushed him out into the car park, behind the barriers, and the race duly started. The next thing you know, you see a picture of a pickup flatbed, picks his car up, puts it on the back of the flatbed, drives it round into the paddock, unload. And about halfway through the race, there's Scotty Dixon coming out and joining the race again. It's like the difference between Le Mans and Daytona 500. Daytona's a 24-hour race. Daytona, they will do everything. They'll carry petrol out to your car to help you put it in, to keep you racing. Whereas Le Mans, the rule was if you walk more than 10 feet away from the car, you're out. So there's some rule about how far you go. But yeah, the Americans love to keep you going. But
I like that attitude.
Yeah. But it was a spectacular. It's a mid-high you can't overtake, even with boost. That's why I thought with the electrical power, because they've already got the push to pass, which gives them another 40 horse. But I thought with electrical, they could have a double boost. But I'm not sure quite how the hybrid is putting the extra power in.
For those that don't know, Mid-Ohio is it almost looks like a bit like Cadwell, doesn't it? It's very
it is
small,
like Campbell Park. Yeah.
Undulating,
it is a
not
Campbell
much
Park.
runoff.
Nowhere to overtake, really, unless you can get a really good run or your tyres. There were no yellows either, so strategy didn't come in. So it was a very close, non-stop race with very little overtaking. But we just ended up with this very tense last 10 laps when Pato O'Ward got past. Palou had dominated this amazing, the Chip Ganassi car. But he just faltered on his pit stop, the last pit stop, and he couldn't get it into gear to get the reset. I mean, lost about 2 seconds, and that was enough to let Pato O'Ward and the McLaren get past and take the lead. And then Palou was soon on his gearbox, but just, O'Ward was defending. But the end, it was quite interesting, the end, because about 12 laps to go, they caught the back markers. Now, some back markers. It was Kiffin Simpson. Now, another thing I like about IndyCar and NASCAR is that staying on the lead lap is so crucial. If you get a safety car, you're back at the back of the pack, you're back in the game, as it were. So there's no blue flags. You don't have to let a leader by.
I couldn't believe what I was watching at the end when you got two back markers, they wouldn't move out of the way.
No, because they're racing. They're racing to stay. They block you. You can block the leader. So it was a safety car. But what made it almost interesting is that Kiffin Simpson just happens to be the teammate of Alex Palou. So Palau was there trying to get past Pato O'Ward. So obviously Simpson was doing his effort not just to stay on the lead lap, but also to hold back the teammates' opposition.
Sorry to go back to the Formula One. I did think that when Perez was being lapped by Hamilton, I did think, is he going to get out of the way? Because that would have made a difference as well. If Perez was a bit naughty and stay, but he didn't, thankfully.
But it does stand
I didn't know that with IndyCar. That's crazy. Yeah. That's crazy because
so you thought it literally
could affect 7
laps till the end, till the checkered flag came out. So poor old Pato was trying to get by, but they're not leaving a door open for Palou. So although it wasn't a great race, it was a spectacle because they were so close and the drama was good at the end. There were a couple of some. Grosjean had a big spin-off, spectacular. Newgarden had an off and spun, but they didn't hit anything and didn't cause a full course yellow. But it's not a good overtaking circuit, but it's so spectacular. You see the boys coming over the crest, they kick up the dust, they got opposite lock on the barriers 2 feet away from the car, no room for going off. And it's just great to watch for a spectacle, even if there wasn't that much overtaking on that particular race.
You could see the Formula 1, because it was wet. You could, for once, see their hands moving
little bit.
But that's only because it was end of the
quarter. A small dab of oppo, small dab of oppo. NXT race, of course, when we've got our two British drivers, Jamie Chadwick and Louis Foster. Louis Foster's been dominating pace-wise, but he's got his Brazilian Chao Colette out there now racing against him. They had the qualifying in 2 different groups again, and Colette led one group and Foster led the other, but Colette's was 0.02 quicker. So the quicker group time takes pole, and he led from pole, and Louis couldn't get by, and again, no overtaking at all, and Colette led Foster. Foster's increasing his championship lead, so it's looking good for the Brit. Jamie Chadwick, after that great Road America, has just fallen back into the bottom 10. She was qualified 11th, got caught in the midfield, bit of carnage on the opening lap, and recovered to finish 10th. So it's a shame she hasn't, the momentum. So everything motorsport, it's so much better momentum. One Road America from start to finish. Went to Laguna Seca, wasn't it? Which was another sort of up and downhill, tricky bull ring circuit. And she was again qualified about 10th or something. It didn't go well. So, and now they've got ovals next weekend. So we'll see how Jamie goes in an oval. But Louis Foster's still looking good, although Collett seems to be a real speed against him now. But we've forgotten one little story from the main IndyCar race, because I've been tweeting about this because I love these sorts of stories. Toby Sowery, who raced in Class B Formula 3, and then he raced a bit he dominated that, sort of the second-hand old 2-year-old cars, Formula 3 Britain. He did a British Formula 3 and couldn't get enough money to do a whole season. Went off to America, as so many have done, as Louis Foster's now doing, trying to do Indy Lights and Indy. I mean, he won. He did race and win in Indy Lights, which was and Indy NXT is now. But he was out 2 weeks ago. He raced at Watkins Glen in an LMP2 prototype, Le Mans Type car, 6 hours. Yeah. Last weekend he was racing a GT3 BMW in Spa, earning a bit of money, racing in Spa. And this weekend he somehow managed to get the backing, because I don't think he got it for free, to rent an Indycar for a weekend, rent a race car for the weekend. And he finished 13th, ahead of Felix Rosenquist, was one behind him. I think he qualified towards the back, I think about 26th, and by strategy, tyres. So a wonderful, wonderful story. He may never race an IndyCar again, but he obviously dreamt of Formula One and dreams of the top. Maybe now he'll get another IndyCar drive, having done such a great job. So it's just great these things happen. Toby Sowery, all supported. Go to it. Follow his Twitter. Give him a boost. Tell him we all love him. I just love stories. He's 29 years old, Formula One, but 29, don't be stupid, you're 19-year-olds.
Well, you just mentioned a nice story there, and Jamie Chadwick as well. So when you go to Silverstone, if you've never driven there before, quite often they'll take you off the main roads and you go through the woods and all sorts. So I'm driving through the woods on the Saturday, and it's muddy, it's wet, and you're miles from anywhere. It's still got 3 miles to go, and like 2 miles off the main road. And there's a father and his 2 children walking along. And I'm thinking, well, obviously people have stopped and asked if they want a lift, and they obviously don't want a lift, but I'll still ask anyway. So wound the window down and said, oh, do you guys want a lift? They said, oh, yes, please. So they jumped in the car, and she's 10 years old. Esme Rosie, her name is. And she's I don't know what category or anything, but one of the best in the UK at karting. And she wants to be a Formula One driver. Her brother Matthew does Formula One TikToks and stuff. But it's fascinating. Everyone's got a little story. And Esme Rosie, her name is, and she wants to be a Formula One driver. But I think it's still a way to go.
Did you ask her father? Did you ask her father if he's got £7 million to spend? No,
he hasn't. And so what the father said, very interesting, and I agree, that they're focusing on 15, 16-year-olds because they want to, because it looks good, McLaren, Williams, and they're getting these 15, 16-year-olds, but they're never going to make it. So why not get an Esme Rosie now, a 10-year-old or an 8-year-old, get someone younger and nurture them all the way through. And they're in this young lady driver thing that David Coulthard's put his name to. And they said it's just such a load of rubbish. You get like how to get fit, how to train for driving, and it's just interesting. So in 15,
is she
10 years time,
is she racing?
She did karting, she's doing cadets.
Well, good luck, Esme.
Yeah, and 15 years time, maybe 10 years time, she can remember this. And I gave her a lift, and she gave me a lift in a McLaren or something. Right, what's next?
Well, just also in America, of course, we had NASCAR in America, and they went for the second time to the windy city of Chicago, and yet, unfortunately, it was the wet city of Chicago, which is such a shame. I mean, Formula E, eat your heart out. Formula E love saying city centre racing when they go out in some airfield in Germany or an exhibition centre in London or wherever they go. I mean, it is in the centre of Chicago, in downtown Chicago. An amazing racetrack where some of the short straights are only about 2 cars wide and the others are 10 cars wide, It was a shame. It was soaking wet. They had a 2-hour red flag session in the mid. I mean, I feel so sorry for the Chicagoans or the spectators that, wanted to go there again, because it is a huge spectacle, but it's not much of a spectacle if you sit in the rain soaking wet for 5 hours.
Think of me on Saturday. Saturday was Baltic at Silverstone. It was 11 degrees, but with the wind and the rain, it felt like minus 11. It was Baltic. Bloody Chicago. They got a heat wave over there.
Well, it wasn't flipping hot, all right? Anyway, there's all sorts of shenanigans going on. I didn't watch the whole race because it stopped before midnight and I went to bed and I've checked out on YouTube this morning. But Shane van Gisbergen, of course, this Kiwi that's come over now in his first NASCAR race. He won the NXT race, not the NXT. The NXT is the single seaters. What's the second division? The Infinity. Infinity. The NASCAR. Anyway, it's the Formula, the second series. He won that. So he won that on the Saturday. And he was in the leading pack for the main race in the rain, but he's taken out, unfortunately. Stuck in the barriers, not his own fault. So Shane didn't win again. Kyle Larson, of course, the great Kyle Larson, was up there with a chance of winning when he completely outbraked himself and just went head on into the tyre walls and got buried underneath the... the American commentator said, and he's up to his screen in tyres or something, because they were like over the top of his windscreen. So that put Larson...
But they say windshield over there.
Yeah, didn't mean up to his roof. Like, maybe he said up to his roof. It was a comment, something like that. He's up to his roof in tyres.
Yeah. I did see Bubba Wallace getting a bit... he gave a bit of a door slam.
Yeah, they were all hitting it because they hit each other by accident. And the trouble is, you tap someone by an accident, and then the boat that gets hit, then he gets his retaliation. But it was Alex Bowman, Larson's Chevrolet teammate, that won it, and he was hanging. It was actually quite exciting last few laps I saw live. Well, not as live. Because he was still on used wets, and Tyler Reddick had stopped and gone for slicks for a long period of the last sort of half. Now the wets were doing the same speed as the slicks. That transition, they're always doing the same lap times, but apparently just about the last 5 laps, the slicks suddenly became the better tyre to have, and he was hounding down Bowman, but he just kissed an apex. He was just trying on the last lap to get that, and he just put him off, and he just wiggled and wobbled and held it, came up second but lost ground. And actually, I've got this in my notes to talk about like Lando, because I didn't mention Lando after Silverstone, because Lando beats himself up. It annoys me too much. All these last 3 races, Lando says, I've got to be more decisive. And don't do that in public, Lando. Just say, oh, that's a great, I'm on the podium. And there's a few things we've got to sort out. Be more, he always beats up on himself. And this Tyler Reddick is exactly the same. He's lost about 2 of the last races when being in contention, And he's just talking about making a decision of which lane to go in, with all slipstreaming around an oval in the last lap at 170 miles an hour. Do I go low? Do I go high, to go for the line? And he's chosen the wrong, all he's done is choosing the wrong side. And that gambler's gone, Tyler, that's just racing,
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But he always interviews, just like Lando, they're both the same. They both, I made the wrong choice. I could have made a better choice, down to me. No, it's not. It's motor racing, boys. Anyway.
I haven't noticed that. I haven't noticed that so much of Lando, but what I have noticed is Lando and Lewis, they try and speak American. What is all that about? I just don't understand it.
What do you mean they try to speak American?
You listen now. Their accents, one's from Stevenage, one's from, I think, Frome or something, near me. And
Froome's Button.
Lando's father was Bristol-based, I think.
Anyway,
so around me somewhere, North Somerset. And they both try and speak like American. It's the weirdest thing. Now you listen. Now next time.
Well, I know Lewis does. He likes the sort of the rappy music, doesn't he? So he pretty goes to American.
It's really odd.
Anyway,
Let's go down under.
Tyler Reddick finished second.
Oh, sorry, we haven't finished your sorry.
In third place was this 21-year-old child, Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs looks more 12 than 21. And he's a ruthless racing driver. When he was doing the Infinity Series, the last race before the playoffs, if his teammate had won, he was already through the playoffs. He won races. Yeah. His teammate ahead of him, they ranked first and second. If his teammate had won the race, he hadn't won one, he would have gotten the playoffs.
I remember.
What does Ty Gibbs do? He sticks him in the wall just to get another win. He got booed and shit. Anyway, but he hasn't yet won a race this year, but he's always up in it, whether it's road courses, ovals, or a wet Chicago roads track. He's there. He's always in the mix. He's an incredible driving talent. He finished third in the end, having led a bit, lost a bit. But in fourth place, another good luck story, was a 45-year-old, Joey Hand, who's actually won the Daytona 24-hour sports car race. He's won it in his class. So he's a veteran, GT racer, and he managed to get a drive, doesn't do the whole season, and finished fourth. Love story. I love stories like that. And then we just got, we're a lot on this day. And Supercars popped down to Townsville, Queensland.
How is Carl Larson still in the lead then? If he hasn't won for ages. So
he had a second. He finished points-wise. He's racked up loads of points.
Carl Larson, Chase Elliott second, Tyler Reddick third, Denny Hamlin fourth.
Down under. It was a Ford
finally
weekend.
Finally.
Chevrolet win in Chicago, but Ford Mustangs fought back. Haven't won many races. The 2 years they've had this new formula has been so Chevy dominated, the Camaros. But Cam Waters led a 1-2 Ford in the first race. Matthew Payne led a Ford 1-2-3 in the second race. So they had a really good weekend. It was a semi-street circuit, Townsville. It's a bit like Adelaide track. They used some public roads and some. So good entertainment down under. Was the only thing really having back home was, as our headline said, the stormy Snetterton. Terrible weather for race one. Tyre choice was everything. And Storm Stacey, never having won it, went for a wet front and an intermediate rear, while all those around him with better teams and bigger dreams had wets front and wets rear. Sadly, the race was actually stopped halfway through when Rory Skinner, who had such a good weekend in Ingliston, Scott, went back, won the Ingliston races. Not Ingliston, I'm calling Ingliston, that's the old racetrack, Knock Hill. He fell off and he might have broken his tib and his fib with one of his legs. Oh. So they had to stop the race. So the rerun was just a 5-lap sprint to the finish. And Storm Stacey took the lead on the last lap. I think last lap he took the lead. To victory.
Who put it on pole and then didn't put their anti-wheelie thing on for the launch and flipped the bike back? I saw that online.
Yeah. Did he fall off? Did he hold it or not? Did he go down?
No, he did not hold it. It went up and everybody was lucky to miss him.
But the two races on the Sunday were pretty much back to normal. In fact, they had a rather boring, identical podium. Glenn Irwin on his Ducati won both races, increased his championship lead. In fact, I think he took the championship from Tommy Bridewell, whose Honda came second. And in third place, and third in the championship was Christian Iden in his Ducati. So identical podiums, but entertainment in Snetterton. But again, you had to get wet to enjoy it.
What a weekend,
Chicago, Silverstone. Oh, the first race in Townsville, Australia, was wet. So whether it was Australia, America, Britain, it was wet for the weekend. Apart from Moto GP in Germany, I don't think that any rain.
Where was Ryan Cullen this weekend? He had a third place, a Vector Motorsport. I think they're Mugello. And the Iron Dames had a first place as well. So just
that would have been an ELMS, European Le Mans Series, which is one too many for me to cover. So I don't bother.
We can only do so much, but we like Ryan. We like Sarah Bovey.
That's headline LMP2. That's just LMP2s and GTs.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Next week, it's the Goodwood Festival of Speed, so there's not much going on in the UK.
Well, apart from the Goodwood Festival of Speed. So
I mean, in terms of racing, there's not much going on.
Oh, no, racing. No, well, there is. Come
on, then.
We'll go world first. You've thrown me there. I was just about to read it. Sao Paulo. I was just about to apologise. I nearly sent people off to Brazil last week for the World Endurance Championship, but it was actually this weekend coming. And obviously, this balance of power is so tiny. Ferrari before Le Mans had their power reduced by 1.7% because they'd been a bit quicker the round before. And because of when they got to Le Mans, they were slow on the straights. They didn't. So they're now giving them back 1.8%. And this tiny little twisting just to make such a difference. So World Endurance Championship, I'd love to say, I don't know how well it's televised or where we can say. I'll be on the internet, but it hasn't got live coverage. But those cars round Sao Paulo will be immense to watch. Indycar have got 2 rounds at the Iowa 7/8 of a mile oval, so that's always spectacular. Real blasts with the NXT boys. Chadwick having to go around an oval, see how she fares. Also in America, IMSA boys are at Motorsport, another fantastic track. Again for the same sort of cars that are down the World Endurance Championship. NASCAR is going to Pocono. Whereas in Britain, apart from going to Goodwood, which I recommend, you can go to Donington for the World Superbikes. Go and watch Top Rack Razgatlioglu. We know his name. It's taken us about 3 years to pronounce his name. I've got it now. I've got it, Paul. I've got it nailed. Top Rack Razgatlioglu. That's a Donington, always great for bikes.
What's the Cadwell Park?
GTs. British
What's the
GT
Cadwell Park?
Snetterton.
What's the Cadwell
And
Park?
of course, Caterham's at Cadwell Park. Are they?
Yeah.
Well, that's quite good because actually, Cadwell Park, so Snetterton up in Norwich, or Donington in the Midlands, or Cadwell Park for Caterham's, or Goodwood down south.
There's only one place to be this weekend in the UK, and that's Goodwood Festival Speed. I'm sorry. As much as I love all the other racing that's going on, the Festival Speed is, if you haven't been and you can get tickets, go. Yeah, it's good. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers.